isn't live. It occurs to me that it may help to have this television.
Maybe 50-50 chance. Wi-Fi.
Is Meetup? Oh yeah, we used to have it written somewhere. And the password is guest123 all over. Very easy.
You want the 5 figure, that's for sure.
Did you get a dongle?
Just 1, 2, 3.
You need that box.
Huh?
You need the box of stuff.
I've got a dongle here. I'm good.
Oh, okay.
HDMI cord.
So it says guest 1, 2, 3.
Yep. And I will figure out which one of these is the right one. That's more promising. Maybe. Keegan, I don't suppose you can help a blind man here. Which one am I doing?
Oh,
No idea.
Aha!
all right.
That's the right one.
Well, I guess we got everybody here. We're ready to go. Excellent. So this almost didn't happen, by the way. I got up this morning at 7 o'clock and realizing that I needed to be on a flight at 9:45. It's starting to snow in Denver. After having given this talk last night, let's just say that I showed up at the airport literally at 9:27. And as I approach, so I have ClearPass and I have TSA pre-check, and I get right through security and I get to the gate and the door's already closed. But there were 4 other people that joined me, all walking up to it at the same time. And they finally like, fine, all of you can just go. So anyway, I was still bending out, I would have been just a little bit delayed and coming a little later this afternoon. So I'm sitting there working on the slides, fixing a few things for after last night. And then I realized that my laptop is going dead. I don't have a charger and I don't have a dongle. So I take an Uber ride, like to Roseville or whatever that is, out to the Apple store and then back. That was like a $50 trip just to do the charges. So it's been a really fun day so far. All right, so we're going to talk about Cypress. Who's heard of Cypress before? A couple of us? All right, great. So I'm really passionate about Cypress. We're going to dig into this tonight. Oh, I must have to do this, by the way. Hold on. To get a selfie. All right, everybody like wave and do something crazy. All right, here we go. Yay! All right, great. There we go. We're done. All right. So we're talking about Cypress tonight. Really quick, a little bit about me. My name is Jesse Sanders. I'm with a company called Rebug. If you follow me on, it's not going to help, is it? The laser pointer won't work on that. If you follow me on Twitter, JesseS_Rebug, I'll make the slides available to you. It's also the demo source code here.
I'll make sure we tweet them out as well.
Perfect. So who am I? I'm an Angular GDE. So that's a Google developer expert. In the United States, I think there's about 34 of us total in the entire US. And I've been working with Angular since about 1.2, so late around there. I've been a developer for about 25 years. I started out on VB4. Anybody work on VB4? Nobody? No? All right, it's kind of a dinosaur at this point. I'll accept that. It was going to really change the world back then. This is before ActiveX even. So yeah, this is way back there. So this picture is actually when I was at the GDE Summit out in Toronto. They had someone drawing these pictures and stuff. I always think that's great. Mostly what I do now is I travel the country speaking and talking about things like NGRX and Cypress and different testing techniques. I got to travel to Tel Aviv last summer. I'm going to India in 2 weeks. Stoked about that. Going to go see the Taj Mahal. So yeah. All right. So who's writing end-to-end tests today? Couple, 3, 4. All right. Who likes writing end-to-end tests today? And maintaining them? No, nobody. Sort of. You are glutton for punishment. This is a very common deal. Like most people don't even bother writing end-to-end tests. They've done it and then they give up on it because it sucks. It's broken. The system is broken of how we write end-to-end tests, and thus what happens is that imagine like this brand new project occurs, right? It's a brand new project. Let me put this on do not disturb airplane or something. All right. You start a brand new project. We all get really super excited about it. And the first thing we talk about, man, we're gonna do things right this time, right? You know, we're gonna design it up front. We're gonna write unit tests. We're gonna have end-to-end tests. We're gonna make it work this time. And then we write some end-to-end tests, and they start flaking out, and they start just blowing up, and we're like, forget it, right? So the test tools out there right now, the big ones are Selenium. Who's using Selenium right now, or has used it? Yeah, okay, great. WebDriver. Okay, all right. Protractor, who's been using Protractor? A little bit, all right. Nightwatch, have you heard of Nightwatch? Well, there's some other ones out there, but the bottom line is, honestly, they're all Selenium.
Yep.
Every single one of these is Selenium based. You know what, does anybody know, trivia for you, what year was Selenium written?
2007.
Close. Go in the wrong direction. 2004. Okay. So end-to-end is hard. So let's talk about why end-to-end testing is difficult and what the problems here is. One, it takes far too long to run. So who's got like in a project where they have 100 protractor tests or Selenium tests?
Oh God, no.
No? Any more than that? So I had a project with 800.
Oh,
800 tests. Guess how long it took to run?
30 minutes.
Ah, 3 hours. Ah, 24. 3 weeks. 6 hours.
Oh God.
6 hours to run. So now I think about this in a CI/CD process. I go ahead and commit some code, the test run, and 6 hours later we get a failure. Do you think that's because of my code? No. That had to be your code, sir. Clearly could not have been mine. 6 hours have passed. Things are fine now. There's a detachment. Okay, it's far too long. We're not getting any sort of feedback. They fail intermittently.
Yes.
They're super flaky. The same tests will pass and pass and pass. They're great. Everything's just fantastic until all of a sudden one day they just don't. And they just start flaking out for no reason. And nothing's changed. We haven't touched anything in this area from front to back. Nothing has changed. Why is it failing? Talk about that a little bit tonight as well. Then we start getting in some of the timing issues and the hacks. So, okay, I'm going to do a little set timeout here in the test, or I've got to have all these like massive, especially in Selenium and WebDriver, all these wait untils. And I mean, we have a whole file that was just dedicated to wait untils. Wait until this, wait until that, wait until this and that. Horrible. And eventually what happens is we just go, forget it, screw this, I'm out. There's no value here. No one's paying attention to these tasks except for management. We don't want this anymore. It wasn't even my idea. This is kind of what it feels like to me. Organize that, you know, and then just when things start to go wrong, and just go wrong very, very poorly. So let's talk about applications in the old days. Anybody know what this is? GeoCities, right on. So, man, my GeoCities site was like kind of badass. It played MIDI and stuff. It had flashy lights. And,
Blink text.
yeah, you had a lot of blinking stuff. And there's actually if you look up, there's a GeoCities vacation site that will actually take your website and convert it to a GeoCities.
Oh my God.
Really nice. So this was the standard of the web. Really going into the 2000s. This was the website. So when we talk about Selenium being developed in 2004, this is what you were testing. Sites like this, server-side rendering, full page refresh. So imagine you pull up a form, you fill it out, you hit submit, the whole form goes away, it comes back and says, sorry, you didn't fill this out right. You know, so you make a couple of changes, you submit it again, it goes away, it comes back, says, sorry. Okay, the web's changed a lot. Now, what kind of the evolution was, we started with jQuery, right? And in jQuery, we got Ajax, and Ajax was super cool. I mean, we can just bring data down, or we can actually have a whole template being rendered up on the server. We can take that and inject it into a div, and we do some really cool stuff with that. And now we're on to the point where we just do one page load with Angular or React or whatever view that we're using, and I've got everything I need, and all I'm now doing is just pulling data and merging that with templates. Okay? And that's the problem, is that Selenium was never designed to handle this scenario. And so what's happened is they've created all these hacks to try to make it, patch it together to keep it alive and keep it going. This is more like a modern website today. No, we're not doing shopping today on Amazon, but this is a really great website to think about in terms of all the stuff that's going on. Okay, so it's got my orders and stuff going on over here. Here's some information on me. I was looking at, so we just put a new sound booth into the office. It's really cool. Getting really psyched about creating a bunch of new content. So I was looking at new foam panels because they're just the standard gray ones are kind of ugly, and I want some color. It'd be nice. It's going to show up in the video, so why not? Right, and then I've got what videos are recommended. Think about all the different things that have to load for this page to happen. And they're all happening down on the client. Okay, much different than what our old GeoCities type of site looks like. So we have a lot more to manage now. So the challenge is, why do these tests become flaky? The challenge, what most people don't understand about Selenium, is that we're basically dealing with a slice or a snapshot at a moment in time and trying to then run a test. Okay, so if we go back over here, I have to pick, if I'm writing a test for this, I have to pick one or maybe two elements that I'm going to wait for. And when it shows up, I'm going to kick the test off. Okay, but the problem is that this, the recently viewed loads great, it's great, and that's what I'm going to key all my tests off of, for this page. And then all of a sudden, recently viewed, there's a minor little change, there's a minor little blip, it's taking longer to load, something's no longer right with it. That slice in time when I'm trying to check for it, it's not there. Test blows up, I get a really lovely error message. You know what I'm talking about, right? With stack trace, like, all right.
Bunch of Selenium mumbo jumbo.
Right, absolutely. So snapshots in time. Huge problem. That's the flakiness. But then the problem is this magic data or seed data. Hey, we can't run the test right now in the staging environment because our seed database is down, or we need to reseed the database. The data's not right. Oh, okay, well, that's kind of crappy to have a database that has to be set up a particular way so we can actually test what's going on. The other thing that I see a lot of people do is magic data. So I need a product that has an inventory count of less than 10 so that this other piece will show up. Like this is an edge case, right? So what do? Well, I don't have any products that don't have an inventory count or less. I'll go create a product and I'll add it. So like that first goes and creates a product, adds a count of 9, and then I go to that other part of the application that I'm trying to test, and I go look that product up. So and then see does this panel show up the way that it's supposed to. So now I've doubled the time, or tripled sometimes, the amount of time it takes to run the test, and I've created more points of failure for things to go wrong. Because again, think about that whole snapshot in the moment of time. Every single page that I'm going to, I'm having to get that perfect snapshot in time and all the stars to line up so that I can make sure I don't have an error. And then, as we are saying, there are those cryptic errors and stack traces that are just impossible to figure out. Like what actually happened in my test? What went wrong? Now, Selenium WebDriver stuff, they added videos and snapshots and a few things like that. But even then, still trying to figure out from that video or that snapshot what went wrong, it's still like you better be a detective because it's very difficult to figure out what went wrong with those. And the other thing, I don't know if you ever noticed this, but while you're doing all this, you have no dev tools available to you. So you got one arm tied behind your back and you're wrestling a bear. What chance do you have? Probably pretty minimal. Here's my lovely, this is my wallpaper at my house. No, not really, but this is a stack trace. And of course, it tells me that automation test node modules, protractor console, this protractor console JS on line 81 and character position 8 is where the error occurred. Right? This is impossible to work from. I can't tell what actually went wrong. I do know that I can't read the property printer head of undefined, but I don't even know where. Okay? And I've worked with stack traces like this so many times, and it's so frustrating trying to figure out which print head, because we have 6 of them that we have loaded up and trying to figure out which one it's interacting with or whatnot. Ugh, forget it. End-to-end testing sucks as it exists right now. This is, honestly, I saw this picture, it's like, that describes it. That is really just the mayhem. And it's like, yeah, could you make sure that all those are, the perfect tension or the, perfectly done? No, this is just impossible. Okay. So what I wanted to introduce you to is Cypress. Cypress is actually built from the ground up. It's an Electron app. It's open source. You can go look at the source code for it. And it changes how we do tests. We're going to first talk about some of the features of Cypress. And what my goal here is at the end of the night is that tomorrow you're going to get up and you're actually going to install this into a project of yours and you're going to play around with it. That is my goal for you. And you'll be inspired to take a look at this and take a hard look at how you might be able to integrate this into your testing and having a completely different experience you've ever had before when it comes to end-to-end testing. So what I love about Cypress, it's so easy. It's easy to set up. It's easy to author tests. You've already seen this type of test. You already know how to do all of this stuff. It's actually going to be very, very intuitive for you to be able to jump in and start writing tests right away and going, oh, this is pretty chill. I got this. This is cool. Running the test is easy. And automatically, as soon as I change the test or change the server code, it reruns the test. Great. Awesome. And debugging, I'm going to show you a new level of debugging that you're going to be like, wow, where has this been? Why have we not had this sort of stuff available to us? So we're going to walk through some slides, and then we're also going to pull up a sample project tonight, and we're going to take a look at a few tests. And we're going to take a look at how the tests run in the browser and see what kind of debugging information that I get back. I think you'll be impressed. All right, setup. So you have 2 options. You can just do an npm install of Cypress into your project. You save dev, and then if you have npm 5.2 or greater, you can do npx. Yeah, npx. Does anybody use npx now currently? No?
What is that?
So basically, it makes it so that I don't have to go node modules, Cypress, bin, and try to execute Cypress.
Oh.
Okay, so it's np execute. And so it'll go ahead and execute Cypress.
And that's just like reading all the different bin files of the different node modules?
It's going to look at node modules, find Cypress, and then it's I'm not sure what the exact mechanism for how it points to find what the executable is in it, but it will launch Cypress for us. If we don't have the open on it, it'll give you a list of all the commands that you can run. The 2 most common are you can either do open, so you can do the interactive and be able to look at the tests and kind of walk through things. Or if you're running it on a server, you'll do Cypress run. And then a couple other things that happen. Now, if you don't want to mess around with installing Cypress in every single project like this and having to configure it, as well as ripping out all the protractor garbage that you don't want, the really nice people at Rebug, my company, we decided that we should just make a schematic. Anybody make schematics yet? Mess around with schematics? No? All right. So schematics allow us to create templates. So we have schematics for, is anybody doing NGRX right now? A little bit. So if you go up, we have an NGRX schematic. So if you're doing basic like CRUD operations, where you're having to create 15 different actions, the reducers for those, the effects for those, a service, plus all the tests, we will gen it out for you. So it'll save you a ton of time. So we write some schematics to be able to help developers work faster, smarter, better. This one here is really simple.
Once you go ahead and install that, then you can do just ng G for generate, and then the name of the schematic, app rebug, Cypress schematic, and just say add. And it will go through, it'll prompt you if you want to remove the protractor stuff or not. But it will go ahead and install it into your project, get it all configured for you. So it makes it really nice and simple. This is really nice if you're doing a lot of different projects and you need to be able to add Cypress to each one, then that'd save you a little bit of time. So once we actually do the open command, this is what comes up. We do run, this window doesn't show it all. So what we see here is, this is a list of all the tests. Where do these tests come from? Actually, what happens is when we do an install of Cypress, it's going to by default add examples directly into your code. Okay, there's going to be an examples folder under integrations, and you can delete it later, but it's a really great starting point. It's going to show you pretty much how to do every single thing that you need to know how to do in Cypress, and you have them run locally on your machine. And then here is what the actual window looks like when we run the test. So if I come back over here, I say, look, I want to run the action spec. Okay, great. I can just click either run all specs, or I can just click on the action spec link there, and then it will go ahead and run it. And here is the preview window that shows me what the interactions are that's going on. Over on the left-hand side, we have a list of all the different steps that are occurring. So it's not as big as it's going to get, isn't it? Maybe a little hard to see in the very back there, but basically saying it's going out to ngdoc.io, and then here's a few XHR requests that are occurring, and then we're getting the input up there that's got an ID of keyword, and then we're typing ngrx, and then we're using braces with the word enter to actually hit the enter key. And then it's doing a get to go load articles. It actually does a search, another XHR request there. It goes out to API article search, and then it's going to render out a list of articles. Okay, so we can step through, we'll actually see this a little bit later, where I can click on each step and see actually what occurred. I can see what the selectors were used. I can see how many items were returned. I can take a look at the XHR request and see what actually occurred there. All right, so there's a ton of built-in libraries as well. So if you're already using stuff like sign-on, you can still use sign-on if you want. jQuery is included as well. So you can just do $, and you got full-on jQuery. You can do whatever you want with it. You have underscore available to you. You have blob, mismatch, moment, promise. All those libraries are native right there for you. Okay, so you don't have to worry about bringing any of those in. They're just part of Cypress. Screenshots and videos. Yes. Okay. This is a super cool feature, and we'll actually take a look at this tonight and see what's actually generated. By default, when we're doing npx Cypress open, these don't happen. Okay, unless I say Cypress screenshot, and then I can force it to take a screenshot. Okay, but otherwise, what happens is if a failure occurs, it will take a screenshot automatically. I don't have to do anything. And also, whether the tests pass or fail, it records a video for each spec file and then compresses it. And that way, if I want to go back and I want to see what was actually occurring, I can watch the actual video of what was occurring in the browser and go, oh, look, there it is, boom, and I can start to understand what that problem is, okay? So super, super powerful, and I don't have to do anything special. It's super easy to do it. Now, to do this in Selenium, it's a little bit more work. You actually have to configure a few things up. Now, think about screenshots. There's also the ability, there's some other libraries out there right now that you can integrate into that will do screenshot differentials for you. And so you can diff your screens and make sure that, hey, nothing has actually changed. Okay, and then I think this will make more sense when we get into some of the more advanced features of Cypress, why this could even be more powerful. So let's talk about authoring. So as I said earlier, examples are added to every project. They're going to be there. There's probably a flag to turn it off. I know I never bothered to kind of figure that out, but it's kind of nice to have those. I might kind of play around with them for a little bit as I'm working on a new project, and I might need a new example of, hey, how do I do this? But also, if I blow those away, I can just go to example.cypress.io and I can get to the examples right there. Okay, same ones. What's great about these is they're easy and logical. So let's take a look at a couple examples here of what tests might look like. You can see I've got a describe, I've got a before each, I have an it. That should be very familiar to all of us. That's what we've been working with, is this basic type of framework here. The only difference here is now I have a new global variable called cy. CY. I can now say visit. And I can go out to, in this case here, we're going out to example.cypress.io commands actions. That's the same test that I was showing on the screen about 5 back. So the main thing here, let's cover this, is that the main concept around writing tests is you visit, you query, you may have an action, and then you should. You do your assertions, okay? So in our case here, we visit the site. We then go and we query, so we're calling cy get, and we're finding anything that has a class with action dash focus on it. Okay, it's gonna select those, and then we're gonna call focus. That is going to place focus onto that element, and then we can go ahead and do our assertion. So I'm gonna say should have class focus. So if you're not familiar with this type of assertion, this is child. Okay, this is by default in what they call an implicit subject, but you can also do an explicit subject, and that's actually in a couple of slides. So I'll show you a couple different ways that you can do the assertions. It really just comes down to what are you comfortable with. Some people like this a little bit better, the more textual. Some people, I tend to be a little bit more explicit and old school, and I wanted to have the dot notation and not have it be strings, but that's really up to you. You can do it both ways. The previous command, that's the same as the jQuery previous command. So it's going to find, in this case here, whatever element's previous child to that one, and it should have an attribute called style, and that should be a color with orange. Cool. So let's talk about actions. So lots of different actions that we can do. So let's say we go ahead and we visit. We can go get whatever button. We can click it. We can double click it. We can get an input. We can type in it, and then we can also call clear on it and remove whatever text is in there. There's a whole bunch of commands here. I'm just using enter, but there's control, there's backspace, there's up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, right arrow, whole list of different functions that I can call. So I don't have to go look up ASCII codes or try to figure out, like, how do I do, it's super simple, very intuitive. I can go ahead and get an input, and I can put focus on it. I can blur on it. I can make sure that I can interact with it really well. I can check and uncheck checkboxes, nice and simple. I remember in Selenium, I used to have to write like custom methods so I could get things properly checked and unchecked. Like it was a pain in the butt. This already built in, I don't have to do any of that. All right, so talk about assertions. I said that there's implicit and there's explicit. So we've already seen implicit. So implicit, I'm using should and. Okay, so it should have class active and have an attribute of href that points to users. Okay, and I can and whatever I want to there. Great. Or I can use explicit subjects, and I can say, so you can see here, I've got a lambda function. So I'm still calling should on my t-body, and I'm getting my first tr. And then I'm taking the results of that, and I'm passing it in. I can now expect tr to have class active. I can expect, whoa, I can touch the screen.
No, it has a timer on it.
It wasn't me.
So I can expect the tr to have an attribute of href with users. Same exact assertion. Just really your style. What do you like to do? What are you more comfortable with, or what follows your style guide better? Handling errors, our favorite, right? Protractor, Selenium errors, man, they're the best. So how about this? No more cryptic errors. Easy to read output. And maybe some hints about why things are going wrong. This is an actual error from Cypress. So It's cut off the top there, but it's basically saying that the site visit failed to load. We were trying to load localhost 4200. We got this as a response, error.com refused, localhost. Okay. Common situations why this would fail. You don't have internet access. You forgot to run or boot your web server, which was the case. It actually is giving us clues about why. Or we can go back to you guys want to see the other slide, the protractor? You know, that nice stack trace and trying to debug, right? This is clearly what we want, what we need. Much, much easier to work with. So let's talk about writing our first test. Let's see here. Here's the project as it is right now. Let me just show you a couple of things and then we'll jump into a couple of tests. And water. So this is just a standard, I didn't do anything special here. This is just an Angular CLI generated project. They get started out as a 6, I upgraded this to a 7. Other than that, there is nothing special about this project. We actually see it run, you can see it looks just like a standard Angular CLI project start. But now once we've installed Cypress, it creates a Cypress folder, and then it creates fixtures, integration, plugins, screenshots, videos as well will show up here. Under fixtures, under integration, here's my examples. Okay, so I can blow those away. So the 2 commands that are starting to run here were terminal rm fr Cypress integration examples. Bam. So those are now gone. I went in and I touched to create the homepage spec, and then I copied this here. And you can see now it's right there. Cool. So no magic there. Now I'm just going to do npx Cypress. Take just a second here. Let's make sure that I've got this project. Okay, we know it's running. We already checked that. All right. I apologize for the people in the back. It does not allow me to make this bigger. It's actually not a web page, so I don't have any view or anything to be able to make that text bigger. But trust me, it says in really light letters, homepage spec.js there. We'll go ahead and just do the run all specs. Great. So we've successfully ran a test. Yay, right? This is fantastic. Well, let's take a look at it really quick here. Here's our, as I told you earlier, here's our preview window. Here's our steps window where we can see, basically what's going on. And then here I can go back to all the tests. I can see that one passed. I don't have any failures, none that were skipped. So 0.65 seconds. I can disable auto scrolling, and I can run all tests again. So I'll just keep it right back off again. Okay, great. I can also now, as promised earlier, I can pull up the debugger tools. I can click here. I can see that the command was visit. This is what the URL resolved to. If we're in redirects, any cookies that were set. I can click on the XHR request here. You guys see that in the back? Is that big enough? Okay. So I can see what the requests look like. I can see what headers were returned, what was in the body. I can dig in and really see what occurred here. Now this is a very, very simple test. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Does Cypress do this, or is this part of the?
This is Cypress. This is Cypress. So because we don't get this typically, right? There's no way to see this information using the debugging tools. So Cypress is using the Chrome debug tools to be able to report this information. But this is something that's unique to Cypress and how it works. And we'll see in a little bit here why this is really important and how this is going to be really, really cool when we're starting to write a little bit more sophisticated tests. So at this point, We've written our first test. We started the server. We already had the server started. If we wouldn't have, if we actually had the server stopped, it would have actually showed us a little error that it wasn't. It started, and we saw a really nice error message about that, warning us. One of the things that comes up, and so I just want to get this out of the way, is people talk about, well, let's have Cypress start the server. That way I won't have to worry about it. Oh, don't do it. Highly recommend that you do not do it. Nope. It's considered an anti-pattern. It's because the Cypress execute can only run tasks that eventually exit. And gserve will not exit on its own. Okay? And then what happens is we start to have port conflicts, all sorts of new sets of problems. Don't do this. It's really bad. So don't have to listen, but when you run into the problem, just remember that was mentioned. Best practice tip. One of the other things here that I've seen in testing where people make a big mistake is I hard-code URLs, especially the base URL. And so I can now only run it either local, host, on my dev machine. Now I have to refactor a whole bunch of tests to try to be able to get it to run on another machine, right? In test with the dev server, staging, all right? Well, if you create a Cypress Json file, which actually if you have the latest version of Cypress, as soon as you run Cypress, it will create a Cypress JSON file for you. It will be blank. It will just be an object literal, an empty object literal, but it will be there. But if I set the base URL, immediately when I fire up Cypress, it'll warn me when the server's not running. Okay? So it'll go to check because it doesn't even need a test to know that, hey, the base URL, there's no one home. And it can be overridden just using the -- config, and I can set a new base URL in my run. So we think about when I want to do this in my CI environment, now all I have to do is just say npx cypress run -- config base URL equals whatever. Boom. Good to go. Yes, sir.
I was about to ask, can you configure different Cypress JSON or whatever that define your global variables for your dev environment, your QA environment, your production environment?
Those would typically be in your regular configs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about environmental specific ones. That's a good question. All right, so back to this. Eliminates hard-coded URLs. So what does this look like? Simple, just base URL, and I can just set it. And then when I go to run it, as I said, I can now do Cypress run, and I can set it to localhost 4300, and I don't have to worry about it. Now everything is just relative path URLs, nice and simple, nothing's hard-coded. So is that it? Who knows what this is from? Anybody?
That's from
There you go. Excellent. No, this is not it. Those are just the basics. I think just based off of those things alone would be a good enough reason to get you to move away from Selenium or Protractor or whatever testing tool you're using or not using right now. But that's not it. In fact, I don't even think it's a good enough case. Like it's great, but the stuff that's after this is why you want to change. Because we're going to change how you're testing. So where end-to-end fails, we've already covered this a little bit, is it's slow. So slow. 6 hours is, when I ask people, what's the longest, I've had a lot of people like, yeah, we've had, I started somebody with TrueCar last night. Yeah, we got thousands of tests. And even though we parallelize them to Sauce Labs or one of those, you feel the pain? All right. How long does your take to test?
6 hours.
6 hours, yeah?
Through software.
Through Sauce Labs. If you didn't use Sauce Labs, how long would it take?
Too long.
By the way, Cypress is looking to use Sauce Labs as well. They're actually, I was reading an article on it last night after the meetup, so I'm going to forward it over to me, that Sauce Labs integrations are coming so that they can take the tests from running in, let's say, 5 minutes and get them to run in like 1 minute. Right? So how's that even possible? That's what we're going to talk about in a second here. The other thing that end-to-end fails is the seed and magic data so that I can try to test my edge cases. Otherwise, all I'm really doing is just a glorified smoke test. making sure that I can just kind of click through my app and, the happy-go-lucky path, right? But that's not where the bugs occur at. The bugs occur in all those little edge cases. Why does this show up, and work this way? That's what we want to try to test. And in the fragility of the tests, if the darn things are just going to start breaking randomly for no reason, what's the point, right? We need them to be consistently, either they pass or they fail, and we know why it occurs. All right, let's talk about stub responses. So this is really the big shift in how you're writing your tests. So stubbed responses is actually recommended for most tests. In fact, I'd say have one true end-to-end test, and everything else for that feature is stubbed. This is hard for people to kind of get their head around. Well, why would I want to do that? Well, the point with testing for end-to-end tests isn't to test the API. It's to test the UI and make sure the UI is going to respond in a given way consistently. Has nothing to do with what the backend returns. Okay? The edge case doesn't have anything to do with what the backend returns. The edge case has to deal with how is the UI going to respond when the product has an inventory count of less than 10. That's what we want to test out. So we need to stop putting so much dependency on our backend. So I see people using Cypress today that don't stub. And I'll tell you that's a mistake. You're wasting your time. And you're still not testing effectively. Because you're not testing your edge cases. So by doing stubbed responses, imagine how much faster your tests are going to be. They're not going to take 6 hours because I'm not dependent on some slow-ass back end that is taking forever to return data. And it's just returning the same data over and over again. Because as I'm trying to test out all the different ways on that user screen, and I've hit it 20 different times, I've loaded the same data 20 times. Is that really what I'm wanting to do? Is that an effective strategy? I'm more effectively load testing the server than I am actually effectively testing the UI. What's great about stubbing responses is there's no magic data anymore. There's no seed database. All that stuff goes away. I don't need any of it. I can control what data is getting passed in for this test. So stubbing is super easy. There's really two parts, two very basic parts. One is I start the server. That tells Cypress, start listening for the XHR requests and any routes that get declared. Cool. So now I've got a route. I'm going to declare a route. I want to declare it for get methods. I want to have it be anything that's users /star. And I want to force a response to the end in this case. I don't want it to return a user. What happens now? So that's great, but the problem with that method right there is that if I have to return, let's say, 50 records, that kind of makes a really nasty test, right? And what if I need to have that, if I have 20 tests, and I want to have different responses for each one, I mean, my test file will get a little out of control, right? So we'll talk about that in 1 second, but stubbing solves a lot of our problems because now we have fast tests, now we have consistent results. And true end-to-end tests can now just really focus on just being smoke tests. Making sure that, does everyone understand what the purpose of a smoke test is? What's the purpose of a smoke test?
Blow smoke through it and see if there's any leaks.
Okay, that's one way of saying it. Anyone else got another definition? Yeah.
Go to the end, make sure it doesn't.
Sure. Make sure all the integration points are working. That's really the point of a smoke test. Make sure that all the different APIs that we call, that we don't have any holes, that it doesn't start blowing up, right? That we can basically, it's all happy path. That's the point of a smoke test. So we're still going to do that. Make sure that we have all of our integration points. We're also down some harnessing. That's an API test if you want to actually test your API. Okay, and that's where those tests should be anyway, right? Is at the API, not in your UI, the test, the backend database, in the API. But there's more. All right. That's actually the real number if you want to call it. It's two numbers, by the way. Let's talk about fixtures, because the way I'm showing you on creating route, a Cypress route for your stub, that's not real practical. But what I can do here is I can say, okay, I want to create a new route, so I'm going to get rid of the object literal, and I can just make direct calls. I can say route, I want it to be forget, I want it to be this path here, and now I want to say fixture users.json. So now I can have a JSON file that has my data in it. So it's very similar to, let's say, like, who's used JSON server? Anybody? You of you? Okay. Similar sort of concept. Except for now, I can plug in whatever I want into a test and, hey, say, here's the data for this test. I want to return these users. And for this test over here, I wanted to return this set of data. But now I can have them be in files, and I don't have to have all that bloat everywhere. The other thing I can do is I can go and declare a fixture. So I can say, I want to create a fixture, and point it to the users JSON file, and I want it to be called users JSON. Now I can do the same exact route declaration, get users, but now I can use the @ sign there and point to that fixture that way. Okay, now a little bit cleaner. I don't have so much bloat in my tests. Waiting for calls to return. So where we talked about the whole moment of the slice in time, that snapshot in the moment of time, the problem is that even if we do stubs, we would still need to try to pick whatever element we're going to key on and make sure that one's loaded before we start our test, right? So Cypress recognized this and said, hey, let's do this other thing called sci-wait. And it takes an array, and I can pass it these aliases that point to the fixtures. So let's say I have a page that has 15 different pieces that it's loading. Okay, great. I declare those routes for each one of them, pointing them to their fixtures, great. And now I can make sure that every one of those is fully loaded before I go on to the next step. Right now, to be able to do that in Protractor or Selenium, like you'd write 15 different weights, and it would just be a nightmare to try to get it to go, right? So the next one here is a little more complicated one, which is autocomplete, where I need to wait for a call. So in this case here, I've turned my server on, I've declared a route, and in here I just have the data directly in there. Item book 1, book 2, and I've aliased it here to get search. Now I'm getting the autocomplete, and I am going to type book, and I'm going to wait for the get search to complete, and declare that its URL should include search query equals book. So think about this. Most likely what I have on my autocomplete here is some sort of debounce, right? And I want to make sure that I didn't debounce, right? I didn't type too slowly, and it went ahead and just tried to load BO, not BOK, right? So that should handle that. Now I can go and get the results, and it should contain book 1 and book 2. So now I can do stuff that's in the middle of a page that's already loaded, or wanting to do some sort of autocomplete or something similar to this, where we're loading data again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. This would be the summary. This is where we're going to actually take a look at a little bit more code. You guys want to dig into this just a little bit more? All right, great. So let's see here. Pull this up. I'm going to go ahead and change branches, and we'll go take a look at this website over here. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. All right, so this site here is called ngdoc.io. So anybody know who Joe Eames is? Yeah. Okay. Joe's a really good friend of mine, by the way. If you're really adventurous, he's going to be in Denver tonight, and tomorrow morning he's teaching a crash course, all day long workshop in Denver, by the way. So I say adventurous. Yeah, he's teaching it at our office tomorrow to about 20 people. This site here is one that he built. I've done a little bit of work on with him. It really turned more into a demo site now that we use for testing and whatnot. But the idea here is that he would collect all these articles and kind of rate them and make them just a way for people to find articles on, let's say, NGRX, or if you want to learn about RxJS, you'll be able to go find those. And if we do a search here, NGRX, and hit enter, now all the articles are NGRX related, so on and so forth. So pretty simple site, not a whole lot to it. I think I can click on an article and it will actually take me to where that article was published on the web, then I can go read it. So kind of just a little curator of useful articles out there. Maybe one day this gets some legs and we'll finish it and do a little bit more around this, but for now we're just going to use it for some testing. So what I've done here is I've written a couple of tests. So that's the home page. In this case here, I went ahead and hard-coded it because I'm not changing my localhost project and all that. I'm just actually going to write some tests against ngdoc.io. So as you see here, my first test is that input should allow the search. So I go ahead and I've done my visit, I do my query, doing my action, and then I'm going to do my should, right? So I get my keyword input, I type NGRX, braces, I say enter. That goes ahead and fires off that request. I can get the article, and it should have a length of 27. That's because there's 27 articles in the database right now on NGRX. So let's actually take a look at this running. Get that out of the way for right now. Don't really need to see the preview much, right? You know what that looks like. So you can see here, here's the test that it ran. So it ran 6 tests in 8 seconds, 8.5 seconds. And now I can go ahead and click. Let's see here. That's missing. So let's rerun this really quick to make sure that we got what we want. Great. Oh, that's the home page. Okay, forget that. Sorry. So input should allow search. So you can see the first thing that happens, it's loading ngdoc.io, the little spinner. I can see it's doing these current identity, auth type. That's going to get recent articles. Now I can also click here on recent articles, find out what was in the request, and then also look at what's in the response. I can see I got 25 articles back. Okay, I can dig into these, click on an article, see all the information on it. Okay, great. So then I can come over here and I can click on get input. When I get input keyword, I can see I'm executing command get. I can see the actual element that it yielded, and not just input, pound keyword. Everything about that element, what the placeholder is. I've got all that information. How many elements were returned? What's my selector? Okay, great. Now it gets better. It's better. So now I start typing. So this is what it's getting applied to. So we're doing a type. This is what we typed in. If we go look at like the key events table, letter by letter, what has actually occurred here. So here's the ASCII value. Oh wow.
Jeez.
Okay, the key down event fired, the key press event fired, the key up event, input, text input, and you can see my change fired right there. I have details that have never been available to me when writing tests. This is a deal changer.
That's wild, man.
Just wait, there's more. We're gonna get into this. You can see my XHR request for for going and searching for those articles. We can see that. I can look at the request and see that See here. Then it was a post. This is where we posted to. Here's the body. So we passed over keywords NGRX. We didn't pass any tags, version 2+. I can see every little detail. So this is nice. Now I can click on the article, which, by the way, you probably didn't notice this either. I didn't really make this. But notice how that's highlighted? On the input, highlighted there, and scrolled it up into position. And just want to see there. When I click on article, see how all of the articles are selected. I'm actually seeing what is selected. Now I can see that there's 27 of them. We did a get command. I can click on an article. I can see all the details about the article. But this is not the article, actually. This is just the element. Right? So this is actually the Angular component that's been rendered. Then I have my insertion. Expected 27, actual is 27. I can dig in here and see those elements, what came back. Great, so that's pretty good, right? Pretty good debugging. All right, let's get into subtest. So we're gonna come back over here. So the first thing I'm doing here is I'm gonna say, let's launch the side server. So this is all my before each here. Because I don't want to have, by the way, I created a new describe in here because I don't want to have to declare starting the server in each one of my stub tests. That's dumb, right? I just want to do it once. So I can now go ahead and start declaring my fixtures. So I have articles JSON, which has 3 articles in it. And I have articles full JSON, which has 27 articles in it. So now you say, where are those at? Well, so I have a fixtures folder right here. And I have a articles JSON, which has 1, 2, 3 articles. I have the articles full, which is, trust me, it's 27 articles. We'll see in a minute. Great. So now I've declared those fixtures. Now I can say I want to declare a route for post for API article search, and I want it to return no articles. This was my first test. I want to make sure that I can actually get it so that nothing gets returned. Okay, now I know for sure it's mocked. Okay, it's stubbed out. So I go ahead and then type input keyword, type an NGRX, hit enter, and I go ahead and get the article, and it should have a length of 0. Okay, so let's go see what happened over here. So stub data calls. Oh, I didn't even notice this before. Here's what routes I've declared, and that it's stubbed. And I have one alias for it. It's kind of cool. So if I have problems with my test, I can go look at, hey, what routes? Oh, I don't have a routes for users declared. Okay, that one's loading live. Cool, we'll handle that. So now I can come over here. My visit's the same. This is still the same. Typing in, great. Ooh, look, XHR stub. So I went ahead and posted this out, and I look at my response, and my body is an empty array. I control what data is coming back. Very, very simply. And then when I go and get the article, I got 0 elements. And I assert, and it worked perfectly. Okay. So now the next one is I want to do a small return. Everything's, again, all the same again, except for on my stub here, my response, I have 3 articles that came back. So if we look over here, this test, I wanted it to just bring back articles JSON. That's the one that has only 3 articles in it. Articles full is the next test after that one. It should have a length of 3 for this one, 27 for that one. So all I'm doing here is I'm just manipulating lengths and how much data that I'm returning. But do you understand that the real power here is now to start going into and say, I have a articles bad JSON, okay? Now I want to just return a single article. Here, and I want to say it's a bad article because it has no tags, okay? And so somewhere I'm just making something up here in my head, but in my component, I would have something that would say, hey, if no tags come back, then go ahead and show this instead in this area. How would I do that with a Selenium test right now? Or protractor test? I'd have to go create an article. What?
Big data.
Big data, garbage data. I'd have to either go create it or I've got to have a seed database. And I have to find that article that doesn't have those tags so that I can test that edge case and make sure that it works. So it's really interesting last night. One of the guys, it's TrueCar guy, was like, hey, but we have this one scenario where we never expected it to occur, but the color for the car came back as null. Oh, interesting. And he's like, so we have to have it load from the API so we can, you know, and there's all this thing, well, the API should never do that anyway. And it's like, well, no, it's fine. You know, I don't know what the right answer is for your organization on how you want to deal with bad data coming out of your database. But it might be as simple as just saying, hey, if it comes back as null, we're going to set it to white. And in that case, then I would want to go ahead and once that bug came up, here's how we're going to fix it in the UI, how we want the UI to respond. Now I want to write a test here in Cypress that returns null for the color, and I want to make sure that it does set it to white. That's where the power is. Now with these tests, the other thing to keep in mind here is that all this, you can set a delay, by the way. I think it's set to like 20 milliseconds or something for the data to return. If you want to have data come back in disparate times, you can set how long you want the delay to be. You can have it time out. You can have it error. So you can test every last scenario. How do you test your application right now to reproduce it when the API returns an error? And what does the UI do? The answer is you don't. Because that was like impossible to do. But you can do that with Cypress. So now, when you're writing tests, you're going to write, again, I'm gonna just hammer on this one more time for you. You're going to write one test that goes in and does a nice happy path and makes sure that all the integration points that are important for this page have all been touched. So that you know that the integration works. And then everything else you're going to do is stubbed. Your tests are going to run unbelievably fast because you don't have an API that's holding you up. You're going to be able to test every last edge case in your application very, very easily. And you don't need all those API calls. So I want to show you a couple other things here really quick. Let's just change this to be 26. And it times out. Times out and fails. So now, let's just get this out of the way. Timed out retrying, too many elements, found 27, expected 26. It's right there, right after my assertion. Very easy to find it. Okay. Cool. But there's more. One other little thing that we're going to talk about really quick tonight, and then we'll wrap up here. So, that's the presentation, don't do that. Do this. Let's go back over here, and I'm going to stop Cypress running. Now, we are going to fire it back up again. And now it's going to run all in the console. We don't have any interaction going on. This is what I'm going to be running up on my CI server. Okay? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'm positive it's not using headless Chrome. I believe it's actually using Cypress's Chrome browser. It's launching. That's a good question. One of those guys. It's not, well, I know Phantom, you're probably thinking of Phantom, that one went away. Not sure, I'll find out for you on that and get you an answer. So now, let's just pick up as much room as we can here. So we can see that, hey, we have 3 passing, 1 failing in the ng.io test. Those first 3 passed, that one failed. We are going to get a stack trace since we are in a console-only mode. We get some stuff on here. Oh, video, true, 1 screenshot. All right. So notice videos and screenshot. So if I come over here at the screenshot, that's so. So here's the screenshot with the right before it fails. Okay. So I can actually see what does the UI look like at that time of failure. Now, if I come over terminal, repo, Cypress demo, videos, all right. So this as big as possible. Ooh. I didn't have to do anything to get this. All I had to do was npx Cypress run. And now I get full videos of what happened during my test. It's beautiful. I mean, I can just come over here.
This is wild.
And just see where what the UI was doing at this point. Okay, great.
But does it record audio from MySpace pages? Really important.
Probably not. So now I've got a nice recording. What went wrong? What happened? What are the steps coming up to it? Let's take this to another level. So I know a couple of you said you're doing NGRX. So there's this new concept that you can do it's a meta reducer that basically takes and logs every action to an external server for each user session. So now a user has an error that occurs in an app. I can actually get their log of their session of what they did, and I can actually step through it step by step and see the exact error they got and be able to recreate it exactly as it happened. So there's no more of this garbage of, well, it works on my machine, right? No one ever says that, right, to QA? No, fine. And then combine that with now I can do videos here. I could get those same captures from, so if I had a really bad error that's using in the GRX application, I could actually get those logs from that server plus the video and be able to screenplay it back through, look at the data step by step and know that I know that I got the bug. So let's see here. In summary, UI tests can be dependable. End-to-end tests in smoke tests are quite achievable and they work. Stubbing is the way to go. You're not here to test out the back end. You're not here to test out the APIs in the database. There's API integration tests for this stuff. You're here to test the UI and make sure that it works exactly the way that it's intended. And you do that by using stubbing. You do that by using Cypress. Complex interactions now become manageable. You're going to have actually now a set of tests. You can handle just about any interaction. I think one of the only things that's not covered right now is like drag and drop. It's coming. Okay. The other thing that people are going to talk about and say, well, we're not sure. Because right now, it only supports Chrome. Okay, so the other browsers are not supported. But I will tell you that I don't think that that's that big of a deal. Because right now, only 3 of you raised your hands that you're actually even using end-to-end tests. And the rest of you have just said, screw it, I don't care. Okay?
The roadmap does say it's on the
I was reading last night that they are actually, it's very close, and they're gonna have to bring some of the WebDriver commands in to be able to work with some of the other browsers, but those other ones are coming. Still not here yet, but I would tell you that you're still better off having a good test suite of tests in Cypress, that even if you could only run them on Chrome, you still have far more value than what you're doing right now.
It seemed like one of the drivers for the cross browser was screenshot to capture those differences.
I'm not sure. Basically, for the longest time, it just hasn't been a priority for them.
Yeah.
They just haven't. They're like, look, we don't care. We get it. We're going to work on it one day. That one day is now. It's actually pretty close to being done. And I would probably expect in the next 3 months, it's probably going to get announced. Now, also, if you follow me on Twitter, I just posted some stuff on it last night about this at the meetup. There's a couple of articles referenced that talk about this exact thing with what browsers are supported, the fact that they're going to start integrations with Sauce Labs, so you can do some parallelization across and make your tests. I mean, you understand, these tests are going to run in less than 10 minutes. Can you imagine that, Dave? Like 10 minutes, probably 5. And if you parallelize it, like you could be down to a minute. Developers are instantly getting feedback on this. And they can be running these tests before they even push their PR. Okay. Also, there's another piece that might be of interest to you, and we're out over here, we're talking about it a little bit, is that you can call Cypress Snapshot, or screenshot, I'm sorry, and take screenshots on each page. And then there's some utilities out there that you can integrate into your tests that will actually do comparisons of images. So, and I told you, and actually I did mention that a little bit earlier. Why would that become important? Well, your data's stubbed. The stub data ain't changing. If you think about, especially when I think more in terms of like NGRX and Redux, that with a given set of data, I'll have the same exact output every single time without question. That's the beauty of the Redux pattern. And so if it's never going to change, then I should be able to compare 2 images, much like who's using, I came here a year ago and talked about Jest, right? Isn't that what I talked about? I think it was Jest. Yeah. So, Jest is great because it has snapshots and it's great for doing unit tests. So, but now you could do that same sort of Jest type of testing where I'm comparing the outputs for my assertions, but now I can do my assertion as my image. Just playing at a whole new level. All right, so Prebug, a little bit about us, what we do. Primarily, we're Angular shop. This is what we specialize in. We have 6 Angular GDPs on staff. So out of the 34 that are available in North America, we have 6 of them. Now, of the 34, I didn't mention this, but only 20 of them actually do any consulting. There's about 14 that are more, it's more for the community contributions. They might do a little bit of, they've done some work on the actual Angular project itself, core, but they don't actually do any consulting. So we have 6 Angular GDEs on staff. Our goal is actually to have 10 by the end of the year. That'd be half of the available consulting GDEs. So we do architecture reviews. We come in and we help people look at their projects and figure out, like, am I doing things the right way? And we basically have about an 80-point checklist that we'll walk you through and tell you whether or not your project is going down the right path or not, and give you some feedback on that. We do customized training. So I taught, let's say, like, give you an example, the framework summit that was in Park City over the summer, I taught a 2-day Angular fundamentals class, same class that I come into companies and teach. This year, Brian Love, who's a GED, he's teaching that class with Aaron Frost. Anybody know Frosty?
Yep.
Yeah. So him and Frosty are teaching Angular fundamentals. I am teaching a class on advanced NGRX. So we're going to get into some of the hairy stuff and really cool stuff that you can do with NGRX, including this whole logging piece that I was talking about how do you take and capture all that information and be able to replay it back in. We do Angular consulting, which might just look like coming in and just helping you out for a day, you know, and taking a look at generally what you're doing and how we might be able to do that, as well as we do staff augmentation. So we work with some of the largest companies in the country and in the world. So a company we just finished up a project for is called Danaher. There's some multi-billion-dollar water conglomerate that does construction. They also do a lot of water treatment stuff, and we're working with their water treatment division. So with that, again, if you want to get more information or if you want to reach out to me, this is my real email address. So I will answer and get back with you. If you have a question on Cypress, you have a question on NGRX, or if there's something that you'd like some help from us on, feel free to reach out to me. Please follow me on Twitter as well. Lots of great information that I'm also getting from the Angular GDE teams. So as a GDE, we have our own private Slack channel. And so we get to find out about what's going on in the Angular world, usually months before it actually gets publicly announced. So if you have a question, a lot of times you can reach out to me on that channel, and I can reach directly out to Rob Warmwald or Mike Ryan or, you know, Brad Green and say, hey, what's going on with this? So with that, any questions? Yeah.
Talk a little bit about like the apps, automated accessibility testing.
I've not done anything with that. I'm not familiar with that.
Reads all the area properties and things like that and make sure you're compliant. That's one of the things we do in ProFactory. But I just make sure we get it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have not. I've done a little bit of that kind of work. You know, you could. I'd have to look into it. I don't know what features that offers right now. With Cypress, I know you can be checking attributes and making sure things exist. I know there's some other tools out there as well around that.
Yeah, the Axe is kind of a static library that set it up and then send it through and it looks to make sure all the models are good.
Send me an email on that. Let me get. I'll get a hold of Glad and find out what's going on with the Cypress team around that.
Yeah, somebody did a simple Cypress, but all it seemed to do was have load the Axe and then run the Axe. But for us, it sees a lot of junk on our page, and we really want to focus on the Axe. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, it should be something. But we're happy to help you out there. And then if nothing else, I can make an introduction. He's one of the VPs there of engineering and a really good guy.
So one of the questions on Cypress looks like that was a pretty good suite for doing screenshots, and that is a suite feature. And I've seen that in some even there are a number of like tools like AppSy has a pretty good level of analytics. The platform uses a lot of the same things. There's a lot of recording and tracking that system out too. My question is, does it have anything as far as field masking for the case like Meetup issue that PHI fields and not being able to store that in certain locations? Is it possible with those in Cypress to kind of say like I want to black out these fields, like not actually see the data that's being put by the user?
No.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of, but you're stubbing out the data.
Right.
So you shouldn't have any data that would be, that's the first thing that jumps out at me.
At the back end.
Yeah, you stub it out so that you're just using, you know, generical data and you don't care what's on there. Again, you're not trying to test out the data, you're trying to test out the UI.
There is a blackout parameter on the screenshot when you do it manually, and it just takes an array of selected. So you can tell it the black things out, but I'm not sure if I think you're talking about very specific bits of the field, not one swag.
So when you testing is scripted and
I'm sorry, say that again.
can you testing is scripted and automated? You can be scripted.
Scripted?
Yeah, like you could have a script that runs your test.
So a script that runs your tests. So like in the CI environment, are you that we're talking about? So yeah, like in Circle CI, that's the probably the most common one that we use. And in that case there, we've just basically got a list of commands, that we're doing, which typically looks like, okay, we're going to install Angular, or the CLI globally. We're going to pull our project in. We're going to go ahead and do the build. We're going to do linting, and then we're going to run the test. So we have a list of commands, yeah. And so since it's command line, I can just do that command, npx, Cypress run, set my base URL, and I'm good to go. Any other questions? All right, well, I'm planning to go to the dark horse, I think, after this. I don't think the snow is supposed to hit till like 10 o'clock or later. If anybody wants to join me, that'd be great. If you want to talk about projects, if you want to dig more into Cypress or just hang out and shoot the breeze a little bit, that'd be great. I always like to meet people and hear a little bit about their projects, what they're doing, and what kind of challenges that they're having. So with that, any other questions? You got a question? Yep.
Question. I'm pretty brand new to all of JavaScript in general.
Excellent.
Coding in
Congratulations.
general.
Welcome.
But I'm just curious, how long does it take to get to the point at which you are able to develop something like this tool from inception? It seems like a huge project.
To write Cypress?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so they started in August of 2015. They started, the initial version was 0.1, 0.10, and then they're on 1.5 something now, I think. They've had a lot of iterations. It's a pretty big undertaking to do.
How many are on the team, Jesse?
That I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a team.
Mm.
They do, by the way, Cypress is free to use. If you want to have them store your images and videos up on the cloud, I hear it's about $100 a month for most organizations. Sure, if you're doing a lot more stuff, that could be a little bit more than that, but it's pretty reasonably priced if you want that. But yeah, congratulations coming to learning and whatnot. Is just on a webcast a couple days ago when we were talking about kind of your exact situation. So if you want to come over and have a beer, I'd love to share a couple insights from it.
Sure.
So, anything else? All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Jesse. Before everybody goes, I have a couple prizes to give out. So if you would like to be in the running for a JetBrains license or possibly a front-end master's year subscription, stick around for just a second in the stream.